everybody, and we're going to give our guest a moment to come on screen. All right, and you ladies can come off mute as well as I greet our audience and thank you all for joining for the final installment of this Voice, Vision, Value Woman Crush Wednesday webinar series. Over the past few weeks, this series, we've celebrated the leadership impact of Black women across the sector who bring a unique lived experience to the field. And we've heard from folks talking about the latest research on Black women leading the sector over the course of the past 12 months. We've introduced Black women who started new philanthropic organizations and enterprises. And we've also discussed with Black women from across the diaspora, the unique challenges, opportunities, and barriers we face. But tonight is super special, or as my son Zachary would say, tonight is epic. And before we all got online with the audience, Amber described it as our "See Mama, we made it" moment. So because for all of us, like millions of girls and women across the globe, we grew up waiting with bated breath for that monthly issue of Essence magazine to land on our doorstep or to be put in our mailboxes. And so to have Susan L. Taylor, the mother goddess, I call you the mother goddess of Black womanhood, here with us tonight is so very special, because your legacy, your deep and rich legacy as editor-in-chief of Essence magazine lives in all of us. And I really mean that. Generations of us now stand in and express and manifest the power of Black womanhood because of the legacy that you laid for all of us. So thank you so much for carving out time to be with us tonight. I'm gonna try not to cry. Let me get it together.
Don't make me cry.
So as I said, we know you as editor-in-chief of Essence magazine, and over the years you've poured into us in ways we know and in ways we may never even really understand. But beyond Essence, you've created a legacy of support and nurturing of Black communities through your work as founder of National Care's mentoring movement. And in this work, you're addressing the life-shredding impacts of intergenerational Black poverty. And this work is guided by a trauma-informed blueprint for community recovery. And we've posted in the chat links to this work where folks can go and learn and understand what you're doing beyond the legacy of Essence magazine. And we encourage our viewers to research CARES. If there's a network in your community, volunteer, become a donor, because this work is critical in the movement for Black lives and for the empowerment and liberation of Black people. So thank you, Susan, for that. So tonight, Susan's gonna moderate a conversation with Retta Morris, president of Borealis Philanthropies, Amber Hambleton, executive director of the Memphis Music Initiative, and Storm Gray, executive director of Emerging Practitioners in Philanthropy. Retta, Amber, and Storm all stepped into the C-suite role, leading their organizations either at the end of 2019 or at the very beginning of 2020. And tonight they're gonna talk with Susan about the lessons they've learned as new CEOs leading the sector in a time such as this. They're gonna share their visions for how to make philanthropy more equitable, inclusive, and just. And they're gonna talk about how community can hold philanthropy more accountable to the lived experiences and conditions that vulnerable people, particularly Black people, are facing in America today. So with that, I'm going to turn my camera off, sit back, and dive into this conversation. And I'll be back later for the Q&A. But for now, I'm going to turn it over to Susan.
Oh, Toya, thank you so much. I am more than honored. And if we're going to be honest, when Toya reached out to me first to be a part of the series, I said no. I don't think that there's going to be the kind of transparency and honesty available. I don't think that women at such high levels in such well-known organizations can really be so very truthful. Don't want them to risk their work. We need you where you are. And I just said I'd rather just sit back and listen. She came back to me again And I have to tell you, Toya, I was wrong. I have been so inspired by the 3 sessions that preceded this one. The honesty, the transparency, the boldness, just women really naming it, talking about their lived experiences, their challenges, and ours. So it is my honor, my great honor to be with my sisters this evening. And Toya, I want to echo something that you did in one of the sessions. You called out the names of women, the women who really opened the way, the Black women who opened the way for other Black women in philanthropy. And what I want to do tonight is just call names of some of the women who have stood strong for us, warrior women, liberators, women. It's the history of Black women. I think it's in our DNA, it's epigenetic. We can go back to, let me call out the name of the Amazon women who, that all women army in Benin, they call them the Amazon women. Let's just bow down to them, and to Ghana's Queen warrior Ya Asantewaa and Mother Tyra. Do we know that Mother Tyra is the person who really taught Dessalines, who was one of the liberators, along with Toussaint Louverture, one of the liberators of Haiti? She taught him how to strategize. She's the one who said, it's time to fight. We're not going to be subject anymore to enslavement. We never should forget her name. Most people don't even know it. I thank God for the sisters who, with Nanny in Jamaica, just ran to the hills and said, you know, we're not going to let the British take our lives. They were never captured. And we know we have to bow down to Harriet Tubman and Ida B. Wells Barnett and so many other women. I want to call out the name of Fannie Lou Hamer. I remember when Marsha Ann Gillespie was the editor-in-chief of Essence magazine, and I was the fashion and beauty editor, and she came back from meeting Fannie Lou Hamer. It changed her life. And I want to thank Shirley Chisholm, who changed my life, and my beloved friend, Barbara Lee, one of the boldest spirits on this planet, taking a stand that no one else at that moment had the courage to take. And today, we're just going to bow down to the sisters who are standing strong in DC for the voting rights of our people, being led by Melanie Campbell, who is a fierce warrior. I see her in the spirit of Dr. Dorothy Height, because she organizes and pulls together, which too few of us do, the high and the humble. So we just say thank God for the sisters who've laid a framework for how we can begin to ensure that you beautiful women who are doing this powerful work are undergirded, are supported, and that the philanthropies you represent, and all philanthropies, and that's a huge question, how do we hold them accountable? But I want to say that, you know, fighting for the freedom of our people is what inspires so many of our, so many Black women, because we know that it's our foreparents whose unpaid labor created the wealth, not just in America, but for the whole Western Hemisphere. But nada. Generations have benefited, corporations have benefited, but nada for the generations whose ancestors' uncompensated labor and bent backs created it. So no group is more passionate about healing harms and transforming structures than we are. And no group is more impactful in producing change than brilliant Black women, the ones certainly who have been part of Voice, Vision, and Value. And God knows the 3 sisters who we're going to all be learning from this evening. So, you know, Toya, we just say thank you for your vision and taking the time and energy and effort to put all of this together. Questions for the panelists, just put them in the chat. Toya, as she said, will be back later on to present them, and they'll be answered. So Storm Gray and Amaretta Morris and Amber Hamilton, would each of you take 2 to 3 minutes to introduce yourselves and tell us about your work? Storm, why don't you begin?
Wow, thank you. Hi, everyone. I am still in awe and in a bit of a fangirl moment. So just pardon me while I mumble my way through it, but my name is Storm Gray. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm the executive director of Emerging Practitioners in Philanthropy. We are a national network of early and mid-career philanthropic professionals who want to see philanthropy live up to its own promise to be truly about the love of people. We provide leadership development opportunities, professional development opportunities, and build community among those who are new to this sector and wanting a new, better, more equitable and social justice oriented way of doing the work that is philanthropy. I come from Camden, New Jersey. I am a Jersey girl at heart. And, you know, the work that I do is in honor of the women who made and molded me. In speaking names, I have to speak the name of my grandmother, Annie Blockman, and my mother, Deborah Gray, who every day told me that if you are going to do anything worth value, you do it for the people and you never forget where you come from. And those are two principles, two ideals that I carry into our work. Those are, you know, the lessons that keep me strong and moving forward, believing that we are not yet at where we need to be in terms of experiencing the liberation that is due to us, but reminding myself that I am a representative of those ancestors who survived and thrived. So it is a great honor to be here with you all. And I'm looking forward to this conversation because I know it's going to be good. But thank you for having me here, Toya, and Voice Vision and Value, and continually creating a space that uplifts the leadership of Black women in philanthropy, particularly at this moment in our sector's history.
Thank you, Storm. And Amber, if you would please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. First, let me say I'm thrilled to have been asked by Toya to join this panel. I am a fangirl and a stan, and I'm fulfilling my childhood dream just to have my existence acknowledged by Miss Susan L. Taylor. So give me a moment. Like Storm, like this is surreal. Fundamentally, who I am is also just a girl from Jersey. You know, I'm the daughter of Michael and Marie from Newark and St. Matthew, South Carolina, respectively. And my life mission is to try to help myself get free and try to help my people get free. I am blessed to be the leader of our team at the Memphis Music Initiative, where we are bringing a curriculum of Black and Brown creative liberation under the guise of a music program. I kind of liken it to, you know, Professor X having his school for mutants that nobody knows about, but they're really doing some serious business behind those walls, and we're doing some serious business behind our walls. And the last thing I would say in terms of my philosophy, I think it's summed up by a sign that I made myself and I put up in the corkboard in my office. And I see it every single day when I'm in my office. And the question it asks is, what is the Blackest thing we can do in this situation? And I take that as my marching orders for the day to really do the Blackest thing I can do in this situation, because I believe in every room that I'm in these various meetings and high-level people and all of this, the only reason I am there is to represent my people and to be their voice inside of rooms they haven't had the chance to get into. So let me just briefly say that the Memphis Music Initiative, our goal is to invest in youth through transformative music engagement, creating equitable opportunities for Black and Brown youth in Memphis, Tennessee. So we're rather unique in that we have two main ways that we do this work. One is actually two direct services programs. So we actually work with young people directly. We have kids in and out of our building. We do a lot of that work. But then we also have this philanthropic side where our goal is to fund like organizations in Memphis and also to provide them with some really critical capacity building support so that their institutions become more solid. Our really kind of point of emphasis is that if we affirm for youth their agency over their lives and their power in creating a thriving community, they will develop audacious plans for personal and collective liberation. So that's what we're really trying to do. And I'm very proud of the work that we have been able to accomplish. And there's so many big things on the horizon that we will be able to do. It's blowing my mind what the team is working on. So I hope to share some of that with you today.
All right. Well, thank you. And Miss Retta, if you would, please.
Oh, absolutely. Like everybody else, I just feel so honored to be in this conversation with my fellow CEOs, obviously with you, Susan L. Taylor, and yeah, just overwhelmed by it. But who am I? I am Florida and Albert's daughter. I'm a daughter of the South. Particularly by way of Texas and Alabama, though I currently live and have lived in DC for the last 20 or so years. I'm a neighbor and a friend. I'm also a former community organizer who now organizes funders and money as my role, as my work, as my primary contribution. And I would add that I'm a spiritual metaphysician. I named that last one because kind of similar to others and Toya, what you shared in terms of, you know, the excitement that we all had when Essence came in the mail. The other, you know, the additional excitement that I had that came along later, Susan, was reading Lessons in Living. And before I even got into it, seeing on the acknowledgement page that you acknowledge Eric Butterworth, a Unity minister. And as a Black woman, Black girl who grew up in Unity and grew up in metaphysics, and frankly did not see a lot of other Black women in metaphysics and in New Thought, seeing kind of you and understanding and seeing kind of the principles all throughout your writings in the spirit columns in the book, and just kind of you being you just meant so much to me, and my mom and my sister, you know, on so many levels. So just wanted to thank you for that. And I named that because how I understand the work that I do, the work that I'm spiritually called to do, my commitment to God, my commitment to community, my commitment to justice is lived out through the philanthropic hats that I wear. And so, you know, in this conversation, I'll just say I wear three. The primary one that was kind of named is that I'm the president of Borealis Philanthropy. We are a social justice philanthropic intermediary, and all that means is we are both a grant seeker. We receive grants from larger philanthropic organizations, and we are also a grant maker. And so in doing so, we're an intermediary that works to resource grassroots movements for liberation. And so we're really building bridges and acting as kind of this leader in this bridge between funders and organizers to support movements who are working toward futures that work for all of us. And so that is the work that I feel so honored to do, and have been in leadership and came into leadership of Borealis in February of this year. And so looking forward to talking about what that transition has been like in all of its ways. And I'll just quickly say my other two hats. I chair the Neighborhood Funders Group board. The Neighborhood Funders Group is one of the philanthropic support organizations and affinity groups that organizes social justice funders. And I am a member of the Black Benefactors Giving Circle. And I name Black benefactors because, you know, during Black Philanthropy Month, which is, you know, this moment that we're in right now in August, I'd be remiss if I didn't clearly position myself and my understanding that what I do with other people's money is not what makes me a philanthropist, right? Kind of what makes me a philanthropist is what I do with my own personal time, talent, treasure, and testimony. And so I want to clearly name that my local giving circle with my fellow folks in DC is one of the ways that I have structured my personal giving. It's one of the outlets for my personal giving to my community and the way in which I've been connected for the last 9 or so years. And so I'm just a big proponent and champion of giving circles. So if I had one of those name tags, ask me about, that's one of the things that you could ask me about if you wanted to learn more.
Well, thank you. And let me tell you a little bit about the National Cares Mentoring Movement and how it came to be. I don't know if you know that it's an outgrowth of Essence Cares. In the wake of Katrina, I mean, it devastated the cities around New Orleans, and we lost so many people who helped us create the Essence Music Festival. So I said to the Essence family, we have to do more than have just a party with a purpose. Everything that Essence has done has a purpose. But I said, we have to deepen this purpose. And for the first time, I think what we saw all across the world was the covers just snatched off of Black poverty. And we said, we have to do something more about this. So we launched Essence Cares. And basically, I wrote about it in the magazine. I tell you, a tsunami of mail came through and people were just begging us to do something in their communities. And I couldn't let people around the country use the name Essence. What we did was we issued a call to commitment. And we asked the tens of thousands of people who attend the festival to go back to their respective communities and to get involved in mentoring, to go into the challenged schools, to go into the juvenile detention centers, and to give the undergirding and the mentoring and the leadership and the love to our children, whose parents weren't really able to do everything that many of our parents were able to do for us. It was beautiful to hear you call out your grands and your parents. And so we move forward, and now we're in 58 cities across the country. And basically what we do is we recruit mentors, we train them, and then we deploy them to places where they're needed as tutors and guides and graduation coaches in schools. We're talking about the schools that are underfunded, that are depressed, where teachers are overwhelmed, where the students very often have to navigate their way home to see how they can avoid gangs, and where they're living in harm's way. And I'll tell you the truth, I had never, though Marion Wright Edelman is my shero, I had never looked in the faces of hungry children in this nation. I've traveled much of the world and I've seen it out there, but I hadn't seen it here until the National Cares Mentoring Movement. And I was visiting Fort Lauderdale. It was really then Fort Lauderdale Cares, now it's South Florida Cares, under three cities under one umbrella. And I visited the Whidden School and another school there where I saw children, girls, they were 13, 14, 15, mothers, being released from school, trying to manage babies, book bags, car seats, and baby bags. All of this into little school buses. The youngest was 12 with 3 children. I was outraged. And I said, we are not going to leave the forward movement of and the restoration of our children and our communities to anybody but us. We need allies. We absolutely do. But we have to be in the forefront of this movement. Now, you know, I mean, I know how to make magazines and festivals, but I really didn't know how to do this. But you know, you listen inwardly, when you're doing God's work, everything you need comes into your hands. So now we're in 58 cities, and this is what we do. We have built programs that are transformational. I just want to say too, that an idea, I said, people will always write, and like you all said tonight, Essence changed lives. It changes lives. So I'm saying, if we, through a magazine, could change the lives of millions of Black women, why can't we step into schools that are disinvested in, and surround our young with curricula, with love, with mentors, psychologists, social workers, volunteer mentors, and really transform their lives? If a magazine at which you never met an editor, it only was, like you said, thrown on your doorstep or was in the mail once a month. If we had a presence in these places, I know we could transform lives, and that's what we're doing all across the country. Now it's really about scaling it, replicating, really refining our curriculum, because these children are coming to school having slept in shelters, hearing gunshots all night long. The teachers are overwhelmed, the principals are overwhelmed, the parents are overwhelmed. And so that's the work that I am dedicated to at this stage in my life. And I see myself as a bridge between the high and the humble. So that's the work of the National Cares Mentoring Movement. And Olivia, if I could just ask you to please put in the chat again a link to a phenomenal video that answers a question that is never asked by the media: why? All we see is Black bad behavior, but we never ever ask or answer the question why. And this beautiful video that we created, Danny Glover narrates it. It gives us the reasons why, and it will introduce you also to our programmatic work. You'll hear the young people speak for themselves. And finally, there is a manual that we've created. It's called A New Way Forward, Healing What's Hurting Black America, created by a brain trust of 60 people. I ask you, you can download it, but please don't share it, because everybody's trying to get it. And you have to be trained to deliver the work. I don't want people just taking it. We didn't create it to sell it. We created it to be in our communities, but we want people to be trained, and we want psychologists and social workers and wellness experts to deliver the content. So there we are, National. We've all introduced ourselves and our work, but I want to ask each of you to answer this question. What in your soul, what in your life, what in your history calls you to do this work in philanthropy, to really work on the restorative, on restoring our communities? And Amber, I want to start with you because you didn't begin in philanthropy, you began in sports management.
Yeah.
So tell us.
So you're right. I began my career in sports because that's always been a personal passion. And I was having a good time and going to the Super Bowl every year. You couldn't tell me nothing. But, there was a point where I really stepped back and said, I am, for the most part, spending my days helping rich athletes, like kind of keep up their performance and that kind of thing. That's nice. But this is not why God gave me these gifts. The Lord done blessed me with a big old mouth. The Lord done blessed me with the ability to walk into a room full of people and say exactly what I want to say. And I've been like that really my whole life. So I was like, I better do something with it. So as my career continued to evolve, I always wanted to be in kind of the nonprofit and philanthropic side. And it took a while for it to happen. But my soul is set on fire by the work that we do, especially the way we've been able to do it. There has been nothing that is compared to being able to know that when you are talking to young people, they are trying to tell you something. They really want you to know what it's like to be them and what gets in their way. And then when I step in that room, the mayor is there and the big philanthropy in town is there. My job is to open this mouth and speak that language into that room so that they know. And I realize that I am in part invited to that room because English is my first language, because I went to the right schools, because I got all the credentials they told me to get. But now they done let me in there, so you done messed up. So now that you got me in there with all the credentials and all the degrees and all the stuff, I'm going to tell you how it actually is. And if there's a price to be paid for that, I am more than willing to pay it because so many people paid it for me.
All right. They bless you for that. Storm. Camden, New Jersey, right? What in those experiences in Camden and growing up surrounded by what was there informs this work? What calls you to do the work of philanthropy today?
What calls me to do this work is understanding that the places we are born and the environments we are born into are often not of our own doing. And yet, through our entire lives, we are punished, held back, and held down for circumstances that are beyond our control. The work that I do now is my way of making a way for other folks like me who see that it is possible to do philanthropy, to make a change, to make a difference now with the skills and tools that we have, right? Similar to Amber, I've always gotten in trouble for running my mouth. I can't not say the uncomfortable thing. I come to this work with the heart of a warrior that knows what it means to have hurt and that is committed to not harming or hurting anyone else in the process. I believe it is possible to do this work with a sense of integrity and recognition of the shared humanity that we all hold, recognizing that even those who are at the helm of systems of oppression are not free. They're not free because their entire existence is wrapped up in the subjugation of other people. You don't know who it is you are without putting me down. And so the work that I do is, I guess it's something I was called to do. I never wanted to be an executive director. And I say this often, I never wanted it, but here I am. I was just saying today, I never wanted it, but the role found me. The work came to me. And I think that there is power in knowing that sometimes we have to answer calls that we weren't prepared to respond to. But in doing so, we are leaning into our own gifts and talents. I credit my home for making me tough, for making me smart, street smart, and book smart. And so even in coming into philanthropy, once I realized what I had found, because I came into it right after college, just looking for a nonprofit job. I just wanted to do good. And then I realized that I was doing good in a place that had the resources to do even greater good. But I had the lens of not having it all. And I saw myself as, similar to what you said, Susan, a bridge between those two worlds. And I continue to serve as a bridge between those two worlds. And it's very humbling to work at an organization, to lead an organization that had such a profound impact on me as an early and mid-career professional in philanthropy, and to give back to that same organization that meant so much to me when I was searching for my voice, when I was figuring out how to do philanthropy differently, or grappling with the pain of realizing that we move so slowly to make the simplest of decisions. And so I think about it as my role as a waymaker to make way for more Ambers, for more Rettas, for more Storms, for more Olivias to come out into the world and to lead with the brilliance and the light and the humanity that I know that we all possess.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. Amaretta, tell us what calls you to this journey.
Oh, thank you for that question, and to my fellow panelists for those answers. And what calls me to this work is a commitment to freeing our people. And I want to use the gifts that I've been given to advance that cause. And I've also been on the other side, quote unquote, of the table because of the journey that my career has taken me. Similar to probably lots of people, I didn't know philanthropy was a thing. I didn't know philanthropy was a field. Honestly, growing up, thanks to my mother, right? I felt like, she was pretty clear. She was like, doctor, lawyer, engineer. Right? Those are your options. That's what I want you to work towards. I didn't really like the sight of blood, so the doctor thing wasn't going to work. So for a while, I went to undergrad in engineering, and I was trying. I was like, okay, I'm going to try to do this. Maybe law school. I don't know. But the thing that fed me and the thing that got me in was youth work. It was activism. It was being politicized in St. Louis by incredible organizers like Jamala Rogers, who is still with Organization for Black Struggle, which was an organization that meant so much to me when I was in undergrad in St. Louis. And being able to understand, and that's really kind of what shifted my career trajectory in terms of what I was going to be doing, and the short story of what that's looked like, across different sectors, in the nonprofit sector, in local government, and now in philanthropy, is really kind of the story that some folks tell, that there was somebody standing by the river and they saw these babies just come in. They were in the river and they were floating down the river and they were going to drown. And so they're calling their friends, come help me, get these babies out of the water, help me. And they're lifting and they're pulling them and they're getting them. And then somebody says, wait, I'm going to go upstream and see who is throwing the babies in the river. And so kind of my career trajectory has been about kind of moving upstream to address and demand the structural changes, the systemic changes that are throwing all of our babies in the river. And so and I've gone to kind of the places where that needs to happen, right? And so I've organized with young people as a youth organizer. I've organized intergenerationally with the adults. I've been in local government because when we're talking about the policy changes, it's not just, I've banged on the system to get them to pass the policy and then realized, well, sometimes they don't want to execute. And so then I went inside the system and said, I need to learn about what it takes to execute on things for masses of our people and our young people and families. And then understanding, wow, there's also a different system and understanding here about how money moves in order to do all of these things, right? Where's my opportunity to go and understand that and influence that at a level? And that's what got me into institutional philanthropy, but in a way that's been able to be kind of a marriage of, and me able to draw upon all those other experiences. And I don't know about y'all, kind of Storm and Amber, but that's one of the amazing things about this current role, is at any given moment, as circuitous and unexpected as this journey has been, I can point to all the times in which I'm drawing upon these past experiences that if you just laid them out wouldn't necessarily make a straight line. But every day I am thankful for these other things that didn't necessarily seem to fit, because it's what allows me to show up and show out for our communities and our people right now.
That's so powerful and so true, you know, that there's no experience that we've ever had that is not useful when we're doing the larger work. If we have the wherewithal to really pause for a moment and see how those experiences can be useful. You know, the work of philanthropy is difficult for Black people. There's no doubt about it. And I'm just curious. You're leading today at the highest levels, where power is typically in the hands of white men. There are some women up there too, but you know, boards, they're typically older white men, probably over 60. Many of them are resourced and they have a lot of say so. And people of every race are really reluctant to give up power. And some are downright disrespectful. You know, when the leader is a Black woman, seen as an outsider, they may feel that you don't belong in so exalted a position. So I remember a brother, well known, working for a Fortune 500 company. He was the CEO. And I said to him, so tell me, are you respected? And he said, every day I have to prove myself, or they would want me to. He said, the disrespect is beyond. I feel undermined. I know that they don't want me there. Nothing in their experience has ever prepared them to report to a Black person. And so I want you to share, and you know who can tell this story better than anybody are probably the Obamas, what Michelle and Barack Obama withstood in that White House, just the vitriol, the disrespect. So share with us some of the critical strategies that Black women must have in their toolkits to navigate those shark-infested waters successfully, without losing confidence, without giving up our wellness, without giving up and stepping away totally. You know, are there tenets of maybe cultural elasticity that we should learn so that we can win? How can Black women position their leadership and situate themselves and be themselves inside structures that are often racist and classist? So, Storm, you want to take this one?
Sure. I think what first comes to mind is none of the work that we do is possible if we do it alone. So, you know, when I think about, I wrote down strategies to stay sane, right? Find your people. At every point in my career and at every point in my life, when I felt down or like I was lacking, or I was just on the edge of just like, I don't know if I'm going to make it, a Black woman showed up and said, sis, I got you. And here's how I have you. And so when I think about how to stay sane in doing this work, it's finding your community, keeping that community and holding close to that community to sustain you and to remind you of who you are in the moments where you forget to fix your crown, right? We say, fix your crown, queen. Fix your crown when it's a little crooked. Dust it off when you forget, you know? I think that has kept me. I think what also keeps me is a firm belief that no person in this world made me. And so no person in this world will break me. I was sent for a reason, and that's my business, not anyone else's, right? And so it's my job to do what I am sent for. And I believe that in doing so, I will find those people, I will find that community, I will find those spaces, those aligned spirits in the work so that I don't feel so alone. So it's not so isolating at times, because it's very isolating, especially, you know, one of the hardest lessons that I've learned in this past year and a half of being ED. I stepped into this role in January, MLK Day 2020, not knowing what a couple months later we will be really in the midst of. But I did it wanting to experience what it meant to be a liberated Black woman in my body, leading an organization like the one I am leading. And that has meant a lot of prioritizing my sanity and my self-care. That has meant a lot of working through the boundaries, right, that we, not the boundaries, the walls we put up, that we've had to put up as Black women to even navigate working in a hostile environment. And I call any environment that is not suited to my wealth, health, or well-being a hostile environment. You can determine where the hostile environment is for yourself. That's all I'm gonna say on that, right? So if in doing that, you know, it's been reminding myself of why I do this work, who sent me to do this work, and finding the people that are also seeking to do something different, to do something better, and to reaffirm myself every day that this work is important. And while I may not see it come to fruition in my lifetime, that's not my business. My business is to carry the work forward and to pass the baton to someone else, just as the baton has been passed to me. So, you know, in terms of strategies, it's really for me grounded in a deep possession of self, in a deep understanding and love of self. Because if you do not claim yourself for yourself, the world will make you doubt yourself and you will lose yourself. And so every day, that is how I approach, you know, navigating the world, navigating the work. And I'm fortunate at EPIP to be supported by an amazing staff and an amazing board. We're all people of color, so we get it. So there's a certain fluency and a fluidity to how we work and how we support one another. When my board chair can call me and say, when are you taking a vacation? I see you working hard over there. How can I support you in your healing and your health and your wellness? Because I see what you're doing over there. And I just want to check on you, sis. And I think that is so powerful. And I'm so fortunate to have that because I recognize there are so many of us that don't. And so I don't take that for granted. And that's what has, you know, helped make the past year and a half a little more bearable, knowing that I have a support system in place, knowing the why about the work that I do, and a deep love for the organization that I serve and the members that we serve, and the recognition of the power that it has to transform the sector.
All right.
Amber, if it's okay. Oh,
Go right ahead, please.
I was gonna jump in because I was absolutely, you know, caught in what you were saying, Storm, and stomping my feet over here. And I see in the chat, yeah, Storm for president for real. I'll vote on that. So definitely around community. And I just wanted to name two things in the spirit. Susan, you opened us up and around candid conversation, and so I want to continue that spirit that y'all have already started and name two of the strategies that save me and support me, and that is a good therapist and a fire group chat. And so that is on any given Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, right? The piece that has been core to being able to show up, to being able to only kind of to know all these things, to kind of stand in all of my power, stand in my voice, and to know kind of when I'm allowing these moments of doubt to carry me away. And, you know, one of the things that I so appreciate about how I was raised, my mother, is just a clarity around how to prioritize, the importance of prioritizing my mental well-being and getting support around that, both informally, how I structure my environment, my community, my relationships, and also formally and professionally. And so kind of, I will tell you, like these 7 months in this role would have looked completely different without those bi-weekly therapy sessions. They're blocked out of my calendar. My assistant knows nothing gets blocked and, you know, covered over them because it's a priority. And then on the group chat side, right, it's having, like Storm said, having my people, you know, having the group that is, and I think, and there's different groupings of people, right? Kind of, there are kind of the folks that are in my professional network in my community, and there's the folks that are in my kind of personal group that cross sector, cross jobs, and that those are the folks that hype me up and are cheering and celebrating and doing that, reflecting back on the hard days in those moments of doubt. And so just, I mean, kind of want to name those things, as well as just say absolutely the importance of community and connection, and knowing that And just want to acknowledge folks on this call, Amber, Toya, Storm, especially, because you all are a part of the philanthropic sisterhood that has also had my back and shouted me out and texted or called or said, hey, we are so proud of you. Like, what do you need? What can we do? What do you need? What do you need to talk about? Shout out to maybe a week in to my job, 2 fellow women of color CEOs sent me flowers. I was not expecting, I was like, who is this from? Like, what is this, babe? Did you send me flowers? What is it? Beautiful bouquets from fellow CEOs, right? Who get it and know that this leadership thing is not for the faint of heart.
That's right.
And we're saying that we got you.
Yeah, I'd love to just.
It's so powerful. Yeah, no, you go, Amber.
Really briefly, I can't underscore what you all said enough, because all of that is true. The other couple of things that I would add to that is being very intentional about the work. So I write a lot of things down because I don't want them to get watered down as I'm negotiating and talking all of these things. I have to keep my intention very clear, and I have to be able to revisit it. I have to build a team who can really get behind those visions and move with the force of 1,000 people for our small team. And for me, it's very important to remain inspired, because there's so much, as a Black woman, there's so many times when you feel just othered and ostracized and all of that. But when I really need inspiration, actually, I've done this so many times. The National Civil Rights Museum in Memphis is spectacular. If you've not been there, please go. The new lynching museum and memorial in Birmingham is fantastic. And I remember having a moment where there's a room that has just, the faces of a lot of Black luminaries and civil rights leaders. And for some reason, there was nobody else in the room but me. I was the only person there. And I sat there for a moment and I just let myself feel their metaphysical energy pouring into me, and feel that inspiration. So you have to get re-inspired somewhere, or else you'll drive yourself nuts. And then the last thing for me, I get a lot of energy from being unrelenting. I am not playing about our young kids in Memphis and what they deserve and what they're going to have. And the arrows that anyone wants to throw at me, no problem, I'll take it. It's just a job. It's just one thing. If they get me fired, then so be it. There will be another one. But as long as I'm here, I am going to go 100 miles an hour to get these young people everything they deserve and more, because they haven't been getting it. So, you just have to find a well to draw from to continue to get your fire relit, to continue to press on even when you have the most ridiculous conversations sometimes. You've got to find some source of continuing inspiration to keep things moving.
Oh boy, powerful, beautiful, needed information. Share with us what nonprofit leaders, so many small nonprofits are shuttering, haven't made it through the pandemic, they're shutting down. What would you say to leaders about what they need to do, what we need to do to keep moving forward? You're struggling for funding, but for Black women, there'd be no National Cares Mentoring Movement. That's just the truth. I want to say every single funder, before this moment, I don't even want to call it reckoning, before this moment of just a willing to hear and a willing to understand what has happened to us, the harms that have been done to us. But before that, the one white man who was a funder invited my husband and I to dinner. And when we walked in, I saw his wife. He was married to a Black woman. Other than that man, every funder has been a Black woman who understands. We emerged from these communities, and we have a passion for justice and equity, and we know what our people need. The hurt that boots on the ground, not so highly resourced leaders feel is that the money overrides the community, never reaches the people. The needle on poverty, it swings back and forth, but there are more poor people today than there were 20 years ago. Yes, there's a greater population, but the fact is that so many people through so many crises have fallen into deeper levels of poverty. What would you say to leaders of nonprofits who are struggling along the margins, who are fearful that they have to shutter? What might they do at these moments?
Well, I'll jump in quickly to say one of the most important things you can do is reach out. Don't kind of be embarrassed or kind of suffer in silence, knowing that you are, a stiff wind away from closing. You got to open your mouth. You got to let people in. You have to tell people. It takes that vulnerability to say that things aren't going the way that you want. How can you help? What else can be done? So definitely don't kind of bring everything inward. But I think a lot of people too, when you're talking about the nonprofit side of things, it's easy to start to look at your work very myopically. But the more you focused on the systems change issue and how your work directly is leading to other people getting free, other organizations getting free, I think it really expands your mindset. So for MMI, we started really focusing on music engagement and creative youth development, but we've moved to personal and collective liberation. We've moved to institution building. We've moved to power building. So we're mobilizing our peers in the space to do work on regionally and statewide. We are making big investments in several organizations because we know how difficult those Black-led organizations, for them to get capital investment. We know how difficult it is. So if nobody else will do it, we'll do it. We know about the lack of pay equity there is. So we're creating a fund just to pay Black leaders equitably because nobody else has stepped up to do it. So it's about really thinking expansively about the systems that are under your purview to impact and change, and thinking through how can we make that vision happen.
Amaretta?
Yeah, I think I would, emphasize the connection piece and the being networked and in relationship with other organizations, because that is what it's about, right? Kind of what Alberta just put in the chat about building power. And that's because what we're trying to do is not just unlock a couple of crumbs for organization, but to acknowledge, right, that, hey, this is a youth organization that is doing this after school. I think, but the reason you're vulnerable, not alone, you're vulnerable because right now there aren't enough resources writ large moving to our young people, right? And spaces for them. And so what you're able to do in connection and alliance and coalition with other organizations is going to be more powerful than what you're able to do alone.
Okay, I know Toya has to get back in here. I just want to say one thing for so many of the nonprofit leaders who don't have access. They don't have access, the portals that they have to submit their proposals in are not easily understood. Sometimes the information that they're asking for, it's so dense, so complex. Small organizations don't have the capacity. They don't have the people who can even answer those questions well. And I know I can just see people at some of the foundations kind of rolling their eyes, when they look at some of the things that African-American led nonprofits may submit. I just wish there was some way, and I really had planned to do this at some point during the Congressional Black Caucus, to really use some resources that we have to invite nonprofit leaders to come, to have proposal writers there, to pair them with those writers, to ask the writers to reduce their fees so that we can really help people who are serving our community at the grassroots level. So the money doesn't continue to go to people who fly over, take the money, sweep it off the table, and don't even know the people. Toya, I have so many more questions, and I know that we're near the end of our time, but can I take a little bit of liberty? There is just one other thing that I would like to, may I? Well, let me let you go first with some of the questions.
So I just put in the chat, I've been chatting with Olivia and Channing saying, so this is gonna go long. Is everybody good to stay? And so a girlfriend and I were fangirling over you, and when you asked me, could you do something? And I said, why does she keep asking me if she can do something? She's Susan Taylor. I will stand on my head and sing Bohemian Rhapsody if you ask me. So you absolutely can ask another question if that is your preference. So.
Yeah, just, raised by polite people. It taught me how to be polite. I'm thinking about my own challenge. When I became the editor-in-chief of the magazine, I hadn't gone to college. And it was very interesting. I think I overworked because I didn't feel worthy. There were people who I was reporting to who in one day began reporting to me, and not everybody was happy. I overworked. In 1 year, Essence went, I mean, it was a high performance team. People give me a lot more credit than I deserve. I know how to treat people well. I'll never understand why people mistreat the people who work with them, not for them, but with them, and whom they're counting on to help elevate whatever it is they're building. I'll never understand it. So inside of a year, we had a television show. Then it was syndicated. And then there was the Essence Awards. And then there was the eyewear and hosiery. And I mean, a whole host of Essence brands, in addition to the Essence Music Festival. I was going through menopause. I thought I was losing my mind. I didn't want to be married to the best man I know. I was crying. I was doing everything except taking care of myself. I had written books. I had edited about 8 books for Essence, giving myself away before I gave myself to myself. And it really took depression and almost hitting a wall for me to awaken. I don't want that to be our story, that we have to take ill, that we have to be hospitalized, that we have to lose our minds and our way in order to awaken. Tell us, please, about the rituals that you do practice or that you know you need to practice, and help us to get back on course so that we put ourselves, as you do, Retta, on our schedules, on your schedule. And you go to your therapy session every week or twice a week, and even sharing that is a gift. Tell us about your wellness practices, and just we can capsule them so that I don't keep Toya waiting too long, please.
I'll dive right in. That is an area that I care deeply about. So my rituals, I'm a creature of rituals and habit. I start the day with a conversation with my ancestors. I thank them for their guidance and protection, and I ask for their continued wisdom and protection over me and the family. That's how I start my day. I start my day with chanting. I identify as a Buddhist, so I start my day grounding myself in those principles and chanting not only for my health and well-being, but for that of other people. I start my day with my spiritual practice. I have, I heal through music. I heal through sound. I'm a words of affirmation kind of girl, right? So I surround myself with those words daily, be that playlists that start the end of my day, or that mark the beginning of my day, or mark the end of my day. I make time to be in nature. I make time to feed my spirit. I make time to move my body. And when I don't make time, I can feel the difference. When I am not in alignment, I feel the difference. So I start the day with taking care of myself first. Nothing else happens until I feed myself first, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. That's the only way I can enter into the day empowered. I can't stress that enough. Therapy is also a part of my self-care. Having an executive coach. If you are at an organization that has any kind of professional development budget to it, find yourself a leadership coach. It's so valuable to just have that as another part of your support system, in addition to a therapist. And my therapist is a Black woman, and my leadership coach is a Black woman. So I'm surrounded, and everybody's getting me together on a daily basis. How you doing at work? And now how's your home life? Girl, get it together. And I think that's so important, because no one is going to love on us the way that we love on us, period. And so those are some of the things that I do on a daily basis, spending time with my dog, spending time with loved ones. I have to remind myself that I am a human being, not a human doing. So I have to be in the presence of myself regularly to understand what it is that I need in the moment, because that's the only way I'm going to serve anyone. It really starts on, taking care of myself first. So those are some of the things that I do as a part of my daily practice, and art as art therapy, and journaling, and all those things. I could go on, but just do the things that feed your spirit and keep doing them and hold true to those things.
Well, you all have to write a book. All these wisdoms should be in one manual. Amber, please.
I just wanted to briefly say that apparently Storm is living my best life, because I'm deeply undisciplined, and rituals last about 3 days in this house. So she's how I should be living. But for the rest of us, who still are in their struggle and in their walk. Let me say, friend, couple things. Having a great team at work, I'm telling you, is worth its weight in gold, and they got to be great. So you really have to be about the work of coaching, mentoring, building trust. I need my team to tell me, you are tripping today, please go relax or something, or whatever it is. So, because they are part of my self-care, actually, because they will gently check me when I need it. And, they trust me to be honest with them. So whether that's your work circle or another circle, you have to have people who you can trust, and who will tell you the real truth. And I use them quite a bit to figure out what the team needs, because you have to realize when you reach a certain level of leadership, you're not going to hear the same kind of information. People keep you out of the loop. They don't want to tell you certain things because you're the boss. But those things might be feeding into their job dissatisfaction or feeding into whatever. So you've really got to be intentional about asking people who know, what's up? What can I do? What can the organization do? How can we, does the team just need a week off? Does it, is it deeper than that? How do we, so you've got to kind of keep revisiting that information pipeline so you can both do the things that you know about and address the things that nobody told you about, because that's one of the diciest part of being a leader, I would say. And then the last part is really about staying true to yourself. The most important thing I ever did as a leader was when I went and got my master's degree program. It was about leadership. And what it helped me do was really bring the best of who I am and integrate that with the leader I wanted to be. It's no faking with me. This me you get, this is it. This is all she got. So I try to be very real and authentic with everybody I deal with. And that helps keep me fed. Because I don't have to be a phony. I don't have to code switch for 8 hours a day and then come home. I can be exactly who I am, love it or leave it. But I know I'm fighting on the side of right. I know that.
All right. Amaretta, bring us home, please.
I will, and I will do it. I will do it quickly because y'all have heard about some of my practices that are core to me already. So the only other one that I'll say that is that I write, and that for 25 years now, morning pages have been, and journaling, having a journaling practice has been the thing that I've continued to return to. I have other things that have come and gone, and even things now, physically, nutrition, sorts of things. But the piece that I'm clear about, if I am not doing, I can immediately tell, is being able to just do that early morning brain dump of all the things that are spinning around there and getting it down on paper. And so I was in college when somebody gave me a copy of Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way. And one of the pieces in there, it invites you as part of this 12-week practice to unlock your creativity. As part of this 12-week practice, it invites you to do 3 pages of stream of consciousness writing as soon as you get up. Not to wordsmith it, not to overthink it, just to get out what is in your head on the page so that you can get clear and go on your way. And so that's how I started doing it. And it's continued to be that for me. Sometimes it's 3 pages, sometimes it's not, but I mean, if you saw my moleskin collection now, all the fabrics, all the patterns, all the things, my journals are life for me. And when I'm feeling stuck, when I'm feeling frazzled, the most immediate thing that I can do before anything else, before any of is to write my way clear.
And Toya, thank you all. I just want to say, I want to just close with my portion with these words from Jean Wilson. She's a Jamaican poet. I don't know if you've ever heard it. No more smalling up of me. Anybody know it? No more smalling up of me. No more saying yes when my heart is screaming no. No more taming of my feelings so my heart won't show. No more hiding my exuberance from disapproving eyes. No more watering down myself so my spirit won't rise. No more smalling up of me, pretending I'm not here. No more running from the music and the spotlight's gear. Claire, no more living in this prison, barricaded by my fears. No more turning and retreating in the face of new frontiers. Tonight has been a healing and an affirmation and a lifting up of all of our spirits. Toya, we love you and we thank you, and the brilliance of the women that you have brought together tonight and the nights preceding this one. Oh my goodness, just bless you and thank you. Thank you for insisting on reaching out to me again.
Well, thank you all for saying yes and for continuing in the spirit of authenticity and accessibility and transparency. Takima Robinson said to me years ago when I sort of started on this journey of documenting the leadership narrative of Black women, she said, when we tell our stories, we set each other free. And that is what we have begun to do through this platform. But it can't happen if Black women like you don't say yes. And you said no, Susan, but eventually you said yes. So thank you for trusting me and continuing the conversation, because I told you these women and this generation of Black women leading in this sector today are fierce and unapologetically bold in their vision for equity and justice. And they have turned and are turning this sector around. So it is a privilege to witness and to partner and to learn and to just be a part of such a moment as this, and to pick up the baton that others have laid for us to carry forward. And there are lots of questions in the chat. So if folks have a few minutes, I want to at least get the first couple ones off the list. One is, what has been the most surprising challenge in leading an organization? And what do you wish you knew before you started? So anyone can take this question. The most surprising challenge, and what, if anything, you wish you knew before you started?
I'll share quickly one of the things that always jumps out to me. I try to be very thoughtful about my leadership. I think my number one job in my job is to take care of my team, because those 15 heads will always be smarter than my one. But one of the things that surprises me sometimes as a leader, you work behind the scenes to get these things going, or something for the staff that you really want to make them feel good and all this stuff. And you're like, boom, bah. And they're like, okay. Sometimes it just doesn't land. And you're like, I've been working my butt off to try to get you guys this extra thing or some extra money or whatever. But somebody said to me once, a raise, like a salary raise, is just a raise for a week. Then it's just your salary. So a lot of these things that you do, you know, you want people to feel it, and you want them to feel your love and your concern and all of those things, but it doesn't always come back to you as deep appreciation. So you just got to take it on the chin and continue to kind of keep chipping away at other things that will add some value to their work with you.
I'd say one of the things that has surprised me the most in this role is the amount of vulnerability that is demanded of you in order to do it well. And what I mean by that is, I think there are some times we see executive leaders as people that are off in the distance, untouchable, inaccessible, perfect in some way. And I think, last year, as difficult as it was a really great time for me to learn alongside with my team. Like, we're going to struggle together. We're going to cry together. We're going to work through this stuff together. I'm going to tell you the things that make me scared. I'm going to tell you the areas where I know I am still growing as a leader. And I do that recognizing that we are in this work together. And just because I have a particular title, and just because, my name is on the top, that doesn't mean anything. We are still human beings that are in service of a work that is larger than all of us. But in order to do that and to do it well, I had to be willing to be vulnerable with my team, which is really hard for a Black woman in a professional space like philanthropy, to be vulnerable and to say, I am afraid of this thing, but we are going to get through it. So I would say that would be one of the biggest surprises, that in being vulnerable in this work and vulnerable with my team, I see the power of being able to be transformed through working alongside them.
Good. One shout out to the question asker, Jaleesa, repping Black Benefactors Giving Circle and other communities as well. But for me, one of the challenges, and maybe it's not unexpected, but just more unexpected than I realized, is leading during a global pandemic. And the pieces that have come with that at multiple levels. And this isn't my first time being an executive director or a CEO. My first experience with that was when I was 24 and leading an organization. It was a smaller organization, was not national, did not have the level of resources that I have now. But when I don't know that I had imagined being in this role again, but I promise you that I did not imagine coming into leadership during a time when I would not be able to meet my colleagues face to face, to be able to rely on the trust building, the relationship building, the intimate connection that comes from being in place with somebody, and realizing how much of a default that is for me in the way in which I relate and build teams. And so having to fundamentally shift, right? I'm like, I do this. I've been facilitating groups and building community and doing this since I was 16. How I haven't been doing it is entirely virtually and entirely remotely. And so this is really demanded of me to be creative, to think about connection in a different way, and to think about relationship building in a different way. The other piece that I'll say, maybe as a learning and a continued learning, is about the way that needing to pay more attention to the way that folks' past experiences of harm in organizations, harm by prior leaders, right, shows up, and then how team and staff experience my leadership. And so really able to kind of for that and understand that in a different way, and then what that means in terms and what's required, what additionally is required relative to communication and thoughtfulness and compassion and grace because of it. Because sometimes that is why, Amber, I know that feeling of the thing doesn't land. I'm like, but and then folks have to help me and say the reason why it didn't land is because X, Y, A, B, C, and D. It's like, oh, thank you. That makes sense. And so being, just being able to understand how that, how that shapes the intentions and the way in which we think about the things that we're rolling out, and how we are creating a culture of collective care in the organization.
Just wanted to come back and thank you all for sharing your hearts and being the Black women leaders that are unafraid to honestly and openly reveal your truths and share your power and inspire all of us to get up and do this thing another day. The community that was with us tonight is from across the country, and it is not only folks in philanthropy. There are nonprofit leaders, community organizers, and activists. So your message reached folks who usually don't have access to these spaces. And so I appreciate your willingness to make space for others who are often not afforded an opportunity to be in the room with philanthropic CEOs, to pose questions, that the challenges you face are not unique to you. They are similar to folks working in community across all sectors, because as Black people, what we do share is a lived experience. And you've empowered and inspired and motivated all of us. And for that, I say thank you. And Mother Goddess Susan, we will continue to support you. We will continue to come together as Black women in philanthropy and lift up your legacy. Because as I said before, you've given us so much. We can't even name all the things that we learned over the years of reading Essence magazine and watching the Essence Awards. And I mean, as you were naming those, we take it for granted how deep the footprint is. And that something like Voice, Vision, Value, really, it exists because of what you curated. It exists for Black women. This is a replication of what you did with Essence magazine. I want you to know that. So thank you for being here. And thank you for continuing to do what you do for our children and for our people. And so with that, everybody, Amber put up the Black Power sign. I don't know how to turn on the camera on my phone. So Amber said earlier she was grandmama with technology. I think I got you beat. But I told you we would roll. Whatever happened, we were going to roll, and nothing was going to stop us from making this space available and accessible to all that wanted to be here tonight. So thank you, dear sisters. I love you all. The recording will be online at voicevisionvalue.org later this week. And good night and take care.